Good morning, greetings, and all of the things. So, I'm hopping back on here just to get more into Memetics, and I will also probably segue into the spiritual. Now, yesterday I spoke briefly on Memetics and all that it covers. Hey, and today I just wanted to, expound a little bit more on that. So, with Memetics, matter of fact, let's back up. The 9 environments. So yesterday I said that, these are basically your dimensions and layers of you and your world. Now, with this system, the 9 environments of you, it is kind of helping us to compartmentalize these different areas of our lives so we can focus on them and target specific things. However, as we know, everything is so interconnected anyway. So once you get into one category, you'll see how this category will affect it. So when we get into maybe like finances, we'll also see that, our beliefs about money and where they stem from also are going to affect that area. Just like with the body, our beliefs are going to also affect what we intake into our body, the way we eat and things like that. When we think about, the relationships, our beliefs are also going to affect that. So everything is really interconnected. And although this system is great at helping us to compartmentalize certain things, everything is interconnected. So Memetics, I'm going to hop back into that. And then, like I said, segue into spiritual, because Memetics is the big umbrella. And then your spiritual connection is one of the next biggest things. So with Memetics is also all of the information that we are constantly taking in. So we're constantly taking in information from our family. We're constantly taking in information from social media, from the TV, from people around us. We're constantly getting downloads, information from everywhere. So with Memetics, starting with like your family, if you grew up in certain situations, let's just say you were always taught that black people are like this, or white people supposed to act like this, Indians, Asians, whatever you are, you're taught that you have to do certain things. Those things shape our beliefs and how we view ourselves, how we view others, how we show up in the world. If you're constantly scrolling and you're seeing stuff about, bad relationships, or you're constantly scrolling and you see stuff about, these new dimensions and realms and stuff, all of those things are going to kind of change your beliefs and how you view people, how you view the world, how you view yourself. So it's very important to be mindful of all of the information that you're taking in. If you're one to watch the news, we all know that part of the news, we're staying current with the current events, but it's also a lot of fear mongering. So you have to be mindful of all of the information that you take in, because then that shapes your beliefs and that shapes every other area of your life. So with Memetics, it comes from the word meme. So thinking about social media, what memes or reels or whatever are you constantly seeing? What comments are you constantly seeing? Because then those things, kind of change our views. If you're looking at your comments on your own page and you seeing that people are boosting you up when you post certain types of content, then you believe that is the kind of content that you're supposed to stick with. If, you start posting your body and stuff, and then, you get in this response, then that's going to change your views on how you see life, how you see yourself, and all types of things. But again, like I said, if you're taking in all this new information about how the world is set up, that also then elevates your consciousness and your beliefs, and it shifts and changes your reality. Now, again, from yesterday, I was looking at it from the perspective of how does that affect our autistic children? Well, when our parents or our family or our friends or whatever, we're constantly, the news, all of these things, we don't realize that we're then pressing these new beliefs, these old beliefs, these, whether they're true or not true, whether they're good, bad, or whatever, we are still going to then teach our children this. Maybe we're not sitting down and giving them personal lessons on, this is how it's supposed to be, but they are picking up information also. Maybe they're not sitting in front of the TV, but they're hearing and they're seeing. They're little sponges, so they're soaking up how you act. They're watching, your behaviors and all of these things. They're seeing how you react when certain stuff happens. So memetics is all about your thinking. It's cultural norms also. So if you grow up, like I said, if you thinking that, black people can't listen to country music, or you're thinking that, oh, I have to hate this other kind of person because of the history that we have, or if I think that, if I go into certain types of stores, I'm going to be immediately followed, or whatever the thing is, these things shape our reality and shape our experience. The more we take in that information, the more we internalize that information, the more we project those things onto the world, and the more we see more of those things happening. So that's just more about the memetic side of things, because like I said, in the middle you have you, and then memetics is that next umbrella. So that's all of your thinking, and that comes from, like I said, from before we were even born to immediately after birth. We're constantly picking up things. So let's get into spiritual. So spiritual is going to be your personal intimate connection with God, your personal intimate connection with spirit, the way you view love and how you express love and things like that. So with spiritual, one part of what we don't talk about is the fact that a lot of us pick up on spirit. We have this internal dialogue, whether it be good spirit, bad spirit, whether you view it as your higher power or your higher self, all of these things, we have different connections to spirit. And then we also then teach our kids that, whether we're teaching them, like I said, consciously by sitting them down or having these difficult conversations, or whether just our lives is showing them these types of things. So it's important for us to have our own spiritual practices. All right, you too. But yeah, it's important for us to have our own spiritual practices that help us to ground and help us to kind of figure out where our mind is, you know what I'm saying, where our thinking is. So do you meditate? Do you speak to spirit? Do you see spirit? Whatever it is, your own, how you view God. How does God speak to you in certain way? Do you pray? It's not to say that we have to do things a certain way, because we all come from different cultural backgrounds with different, religious or cultural norms that kind of shape, how we have this connection with spirit and with God. So, it's also important to note too that children, like I said, when they come out, they are very much so more so connected to spirit, God. A lot of kids, we talk about how they'll be looking up smiling, oh, they see angels and things like that. And sometimes we even see videos of, children talking to loved ones that passed on and things like that. But we forget that this is a part of life. Or we try to turn it off. We try to shun it. We don't understand it. We never dive deep into it. But when you have these children that are processing and thinking and, behaving differently outside of whatever our cultural norm says we're supposed to do, we have to also look at, maybe they have a different type of spiritual connection. Maybe they are hearing different. Maybe they are seeing different, or whatever. And it's not for us to be afraid of these things, but to kind of understand them and then help them to cultivate these things. You don't want to shut off their spiritual connection or their spiritual gifts, and then later on in life they have to have these major spiritual awakenings just so their spirit can remind them of the things that they know now, or the things that they are connected with now. And the same goes for us. A lot of the times we grow up and we are more spiritual as a kid, or we may have been more observant or whatever. But again, our families, our cultural norms, our societal norms, they tell us to shut those things off, to run from those things, to be scared of those things. But it's very much so important for us to, figure out what our own intimate and personal connection with spirit and with God is, so that we can fully thrive and we can, activate these gifts, so we can elevate our consciousness, so we can really walk into who we are meant to be. So, I think that the next topic I'm gonna go into is the self, because our thinking, our spirituality, all of those things then help us to create our own self. And since I got time, I'm gonna just go ahead. So with the self, those are going to be things like your passions, your preferences, your likes, your dislikes, things like that. Our thinking and our spirit, what our purpose and our connection with God, that kind of helps to shape us into, our individuality or the self. Now, if you are growing up in a household to where you don't see any, self-express, you don't see your parents, with expressing their creative gifts, you don't see them even expressing their own desires, you don't see them, doing any of these things, it kind of then shapes them of how they're supposed to, like, they don't know what they're supposed to do. And I think it's also important to note that we all come with those specific things already, in us. That's our nature. And then that nurture factor then tells us we can do it or we can't do it, hey, or things like that. So it's important to remember that kids also have their own sense of self, like that they have their own purpose, that they're supposed to come here and express. So one thing that I'm big on doing is highlighting whatever those gifts are, whether they're spiritual gifts, whether they're creative gifts, or just a general interest, so that I can kind of help to cultivate whatever your passion is. Do it, live forward into it. What I noticed with a couple of my babies, I had one baby and he was like into music. His dad was musically inclined, and before I came there, it wasn't like something that they focused on. But once I seen how he reacted when dad was playing music, it's like, oh, okay, let's turn on some music then. And I had to also ask things like, are you guys spiritual or Christian? Okay, we'll put on some gospel music. Okay, what you want me to do? You want to pray or something? But it's important to whatever the individual is drawn to also kind of help to encourage that. So for that little baby, when he got on his keyboard, he was like playing and he had like a rhythm going. No, it wasn't perfect because he's not like, he hasn't practiced it, but you could tell like, oh, you might have some talent. Like, okay. And he was also nonverbal, but he would make vocalizations like he wanted to sing and stuff. So it's like, when you see that you're even like, one part of training, they say like if they have a focus on trains or something, they have a fixation on certain things. That's just their genius. That's literally their genius, and it could be a part of their purpose and what they're meant to do. If they have that, they only want to lock in on trains, okay, they encourage them to maybe be a conductor. Encourage them to maybe be an engineer or something. I know for my baby, another baby I had, whatever he does, I'm saying, oh, you like cars and wheels? Oh, okay, maybe you could be a mechanic when you grow up. Maybe you'll be a race car driver. Maybe you'll drive motorcycles. What kind of motorcycle do you think? So it's like whatever they're naturally drawn to, rather than trying to get them to not fixate on those things, it's like encourage that. If that's their passion, yeah, we want to encourage them to do other things and stuff like that, so they be a little bit more diverse and, they can blend a little bit. It's still important for us to encourage whatever those passions are and to give them some autonomy also so that they can express themselves, give them some type of independence, give them a voice, so that they can be whoever God has called them to be, not based off of just our limited beliefs, our limited memetics, our cultural norms and things like that. We have to also just show up and express ourselves so that they're encouraged to do the same things. If you have a passion as a parent, you have to you don't want to always give off that energy of, oh, I didn't make it, or oh, I couldn't do this. Like, you might not think you're putting that energy out there, but you are. If you're depressed or sad or you're feeling unfulfilled within yourself, people feel that. People know that you're not showing up in this bright, vibrant energy. You're not showing up in this, confident energy. You're showing up a little stank. You're showing up a little stank. And then that is projected on to your children like, okay, well, I didn't follow my dreams, then I can't. Now when they grow up, they can make, different decisions, but you have to imagine if you're already labeled with a specific disability and that's constantly reinforced rather than reinforcing the individuality, reinforcing, the passions, reinforcing that spiritual connection that they might have or whatever it is, then they're gonna eventually, clam up in the same way that you do. They're gonna believe in those same limitations that you do. They're not gonna go after those things. But it's important that we just remember, first we starting at our beliefs and our memetics. If you want to kind of like begin to train your brain to know that anything is really possible. It's like we hear it all the time, but do we actually believe anything is possible? When we get into spiritual, we say God can do anything, spirit be guiding me and protecting me. But do you really believe that? Do you believe that, your God is a healer and can change things? Or do you really believe in, just what the world is telling you, and it has to be this way, and you have to do things this way, and you have to medicate, and you have to da-da-da-da-da? What do you believe? So, again, we're challenging our beliefs and our thinking. We're cultivating our own spiritual connection with God, with spirit, and we're putting some practice into place. It's also important, maybe you want to, I know for me, I had to like kind of give them one of my babies the tools to like say, hey, take a breath, take a deep breath. Like, hey, let's breathe, let's calm down. When I came in, I noticed like it wasn't like he was autistic per se. It was more like bipolar, but mom had a history of a lot of mental health stuff, and so I had to understand his energy. He was going from extremely happy and giggly and drooling to, okay, I'm so upset and mad and I'm having these tantrums, I'm falling out, I'm acting out, and all of these types of things. So I had to find ways to say, hey, calm down. Hey, I understand why you're upset, or hey, I understand you're happy, but hey, kind of to help him to have, again, that autonomy to kind of recognize, and giving him the language to say, hey, are you just bored? Or hey, do you have too much energy? Do we need to go outside and play? Or, things like that. So working on the thinking, the spiritual connection, and then we're getting into, I got into the self a little bit, and I might have to go a little deeper into that. And that would be, again, just your individual expressions. We have some, and like I said, everything be all interconnected. Some kids, they have limited diets and they fixate on certain things. Yes, we have to encourage things, but we also have to realize that some things are preference. Some things are going to be, their human design or their energetic design. They're going to be drawn to certain foods because their body, needs that, versus I might have different needs, But we just beginning to think about these different things. And again, all of these, as much as these things are here to help us to compartmentalize and give us checklists, things to focus on and stuff like that, everything is so interconnected. But yeah, I think I'm gonna leave it there. I probably will continue to deep dive into these other categories. But yeah, today I touched on memetics a little bit more, the spiritual side, and a little bit of the self. And I hope that we are, changing our beliefs, internalizing new things so that we can really bring healing to our perspectives, bring healing to our beliefs, kind of shake off the dead weight, the stuff that is not working for us, and implement new things that are going to help us to, continue to grow forward with our babies in mind. And this is for stuff not just for autistic kids or, just for whatever. This is for all of us. These are things that we want to be looking at also with our children who are normal or whatever, based off of society, they're normal. We want to start looking at these things for our regular kids so that we can just, encourage them to be their higher selves and their best selves too. This information is for all of us. Once the parents and the adults start changing, then that stuff naturally trickles down to our children too. But yeah, I'm gonna leave it at that. And I will see you guys and talk to you guys a little bit later. This will be posted.